So welcome to the Courageous Nerd YouTube channel. My name's Connor, and I'm joined today by Audrey Hsieh. Audrey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Connor?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for being here. And yeah, just thanks for taking the time. Obviously, people like know you a little bit as like a young actress, kind of like rising in the industry, right? But what kind of first got you started doing that? Like, what made you want to pursue a career in acting?
Mm. Well, originally, I was a child, like 6 years old. I was approached by a scout, and it seemed like a fun thing to do. So I was like, oh,
Hmm.
why not? Why not just do it? But my parents told me that they were, even if I didn't get approached by the scout, they were planning to get me into acting because I just had so much energy to expend that they didn't know what to do with me. So it was just for fun originally.
For sure. And you were telling me before we started the recording actually that you're from like the LA area. So like, is that a thing where a lot of like young kids growing up around there would, find their way into acting at some point, whether they continue with it or not, they'd kind of have some experience in that industry at some point.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, everyone probably once at one time in their life thought, "Oh, maybe want to pick up acting."
Mm,
In LA for kids, at least in, my experience, you do it when you're young, kind of just do it for fun. But then once you get around like middle school, that's where you're like, "Okay, do I want to continue or do I want to focus on my academics?" So, yeah.
for sure. And obviously, it's a huge deal because I'm sure like when you're a little kid, you don't really understand what you're doing, but when you get older, you kind of recognize that this is an actual job. This is, work,
Yeah.
and I could potentially be like committing the rest of my life to doing this thing I just thought was a hobby. So is that something that you kind of thought about, that this could potentially be what I'm doing for the rest of my life, or you just kind of like rolling with the kind of fun aspect?
Oh yeah, I definitely had that thought like this could be a lifetime career. I mean, starting it so young, it's just like, oh, it's whatever. I've just been doing this. This is just what I
Mm,
do. But then later on, it's like really need to think about the time commitment and like, the resources and the money and all that stuff
yeah.
and think, okay, do I want to continue it? Because at some point it stops being a passion and you actually have to fully commit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm sure like, like anything else in life, there's constantly learning, kind of evolve in the craft. But like, what would you say has been like your biggest learning experience since really kind of going for acting?
Mm. I would say that my biggest learning experience would probably be just all the rejection because I mean,
Mm,
obviously in this industry you're gonna get rejected more than you get like hired.
right.
Um, but I think the biggest hurdle for a lot of actors is probably the rejection because you need to know that you kind of need to grow a little bit of a tough skin and not take it personally
Mm,
because it's not personal. It's just that they found someone who might be a better fit than you, and that's fine.
yeah.
But that's definitely one of the hurdles that I really had to jump over. So
Mm.
yeah, just trial and error.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that from a lot of people where, it could be as simple as, you look too similar to someone they've already cast, or like,
Yeah.
or like the family they're
Mhm.
casting, you don't really fit the look, so it's not believable you'd be related to them. It might have
Yeah,
nothing to do with
okay.
you at
That
all.
yeah, that part is honestly it's kind of heartbreaking when they say, "Oh, you're great, but you're not really what we're looking for." Like one time, I went
Mm.
into an audition and they straight up said to me, "You're not tall enough. You're not what we're looking for." And they just sent me out and
Oh
I was so
no.
sad. I was so embarrassed. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh." And when I got to the car, I was like, "Oh, they said I wasn't tall enough." But that's just part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely relatable to any kind of like trying to get a job experience. Like, it sounds harsh or you kind of feel bummed, but it's not personal. It's not a reflection on your own ability, right? It kind of
Yeah.
that take away the hurt a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Who you are as an actor is not who you are as a person, okay? You are a great person, I assume, if anyone is doing acting watching this. You're a great person. Acting does not define you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I suppose like, fast forwarding from like when you first started in acting to more recently, you played Ellen in a film called Mixtape for Netflix. And I suppose that for anyone who's unfamiliar with the film, like maybe, only hearing about it now, like could you maybe describe it and your character's role?
Yeah, of course. So, Mixtape is a movie about a 12-year-old girl, Beverly, and she lives with her grandmother. One day, she finds a mixtape from her deceased parents and decides to look for all these songs because, she wants to bond with her deceased parents, see if they left
Mm,
any sort of message. And on the way, she makes friends and, discovers herself. One of her friends she makes is my character, Ellen. I'm like a techie kind of techie, it
right.
takes place in the early, wait, was it 2000? 1999. It takes place around there.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn of the century.
Um,
Yeah.
but Ellen is a very fashionable character. She's very bold and she just wants to have a good time. I like,
Mm,
yeah, I really like it.
absolute. Absolutely. And obviously, as mentioned, right, it was for Netflix, but like with a Netflix TV show, it's kind of different because they drop all the shows at once. Is there a difference in working on a Netflix film compared to like any other film, or was it pretty similar for you?
I will say that the whole experience was handled really well. Like, especially during COVID, we were taking they Netflix took really good care of us. Like
Mm,
they followed all the guidelines, all the precautions. They made sure that we weren't uncomfortable at any time. They were very accommodating. So I would say probably that.
absolutely. And like, what do you think you most enjoyed about working on a Netflix production?
Um, I really this I guess this kind of goes for other films I've been on, but
Right.
this film for Mixtape, it had such a warm environment. Like the
Mm,
cast and the crew, everyone was just so nice, and I don't know why, but it really surprised me. But everybody was so kind, so generous, so conversational, and I like that kind of environment we established.
absolutely. And I know, like you mentioned, other films that you've done, and one that I know of is Here Today, which had Billy Crystal and yeah, well, yeah, of course, Billy Crystal being the iconic comedian that he is. But like, how was like your experience of working on that project?
Oh, that one was also just amazing. I got to go to
Hmm.
New York for the very first time.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big step, and honestly, it was a little intimidating because that was my first big film. Actually, my
Sure.
first film, actually,
Hmm.
oh, any. But it was my first big film, and there were all these amazing names. There's Billy Crystal, there's Tiffany Haddish, Penn Badgley, all these
Hmm.
amazing people, and then there's me. So I was really nervous
Sure.
if I could, match their performance. But I definitely learned a lot, and everybody was really nice too on that, which was also really surprising.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, being as like young as you are, then like, would you have been conscious of who someone like Billy Crystal was, or like, I mean, I imagine some of the others might have been maybe more familiar to you, just because of the age group you're in. But do you kind of like look into who you're working with, or just it's all just kind of new to you? If that makes sense.
Yeah. When I don't know someone, I do a quick Google search
Mm.
because Google has everything.
Of
Um, I found out that Billy Crystal was the voice of Mike
course,
Wazowski, so I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
that's cool.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, rather than that, I didn't really know who he was, but um, he's a really awesome, sweet guy. Also everyone else in the cast, Tiffany, Penn, all those
Mm.
people. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I was going to ask, but you kind of already, I think, alluded to it about which way around you shot those. But I take it was like you shot mixtape second of those two, right?
Yeah. I shot. When did I shoot Here Today? I think it was. Okay, wait. 2021. Maybe 2019. I think.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was shot in 2019, and Mixtape was shot early 2021.
Right. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously, like this whole film industry can be a bit odd, where it's not necessarily released in the order you shot it. At least I've heard of, right? That can kind of be a bit
Yeah,
trippy.
yeah, it definitely is. Um, Here Today was the release was postponed because of COVID. It was
Right.
postponed for like a year and a half or maybe 2 years. I don't know exactly. It was just postponed for a long time. And Mixtape was the filming itself actually was postponed a full year because
Right.
when I got the role, it was a full year until we finally started filming, which was crazy to me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like obviously as someone who's like working on these productions, like can you tell when you're watching something now, like, oh, they shot that during COVID because they're doing like this thing, or like, oh, that's clearly from before because this is happening. Like, do you notice those kind of things when you're watching as a viewer?
Honestly, I personally I can't really tell. Um, I think a lot of the storylines probably, the storylines are, I guess, the movies that take place during COVID. A lot of them
Mm,
have, they utilize the web cameras. So I guess
yeah.
that's one way you could tell that
Mm,
it was shot during COVID. But for the most part, I can't really tell because they
yeah.
usually just resume filming like normal.
Sure. I mean, it's pretty crazy watching films from like 2, 3 years ago where there's like big crowd scenes. You're thinking like,
Oh
God, like,
yeah,
and like at the time, nothing was wrong with that, and you're just kind of thinking, that's a potential like, death hazard. Right nowadays, that's
yeah,
crazy to think about.
it really is. I mean, on set when we have the big crowd scenes, so for
Mm,
example mixtape we had a school, there were a lot of kids, there were so many kids, but I'm pretty sure everyone had to get COVID tested, so it was a lot of work for the COVID testers, but it turned out well, so that's good.
for sure. And obviously, like we've covered these two films, but like, what else can people expect from you in in the near future? Have you got anything lined up that you're able to talk about?
For right now, I don't have anything lined up. I'm focusing on college because right
Mm,
now I'm in my senior year, and
right.
there's a lot of work with college there and a lot of
Mm.
nerves. So yeah,
Yeah, well, obviously, academics are important. So, best of luck with
thank
that
you.
journey when it happens, for sure. And yeah, I suppose that anyone who's kind of been following along with you, like, where can they find you online if they want to keep up with what you're doing?
You can find me on Instagram at Audrey Hsieh underscore. Yeah.
Sounds good. And obviously, make sure to like, follow up on that and find her on Instagram for sure.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, do that. Absolutely. And yeah, I suppose like kind of in a more general sense, and it's actually the last question I've got, but like what would you like to or hope to accomplish with the rest of 2022?
Uh, man, my right, my standards are pretty low. I
Yeah,
just want to get into college, a good
right.
college.
That's
That's what
that's a
I'm
good
focused
goal. Yeah.
on right now. Yeah. I actually another thing I want to be start talking to more people
Mm.
because because of COVID I kind of started reclusing a bit and I want to get back out there. So yeah,
Oh, yeah, for sure. And obviously, again, best of luck with college, with your further, I guess, social ambitions and like acting. And yeah, yeah, just thanks again for taking the time, Audrey. Take care and stay safe.
yeah. Thank you for having me. Same goes to you. Stay safe out there.